Hi there, and welcome to Telefunken. Today, we're going to be replacing the cooling fan in an Apogee Symphony I Mark I. The Apogee Symphony is a highly regarded professional-grade audio interface with one minor flaw. The interface is fan-cooled, and the fan supplied with the unit has been the subject of some criticism because it's simply too loud. Although it may be perfectly fine in a big studio control room, if you've ever tried to record vocal overdubs in the same room as your symphony, you'll know what I mean. This issue is only relevant if you have a silver-faced Symphony Mark I. If you have a black-faced Symphony Mark II, the good news is that Apogee made several changes to the temperature control system in the Mark II, and it runs much quieter than the Mark I. If you have a Symphony Mark II with a lot of fan noise, I suggest you get in touch directly with Apogee and ask them to help sort you out. Before we start, we're going to need a fan. More about that in a moment. You'll also need a Phillips screwdriver and a few hand tools to remove the fan, and you may need a soldering iron. I say may because, as you'll see, the replacement fan doesn't come with a connector required to draw power from the main board in the Symphony, so you'll need to reuse the old connector. Either cut the wires halfway and solder the old connector to the new fan, or you can choose to take advantage of the push-down connector used by Apogee and use the solder-free approach described in this video. The recommended fan for the Symphony Mark I is a Sanyo Denki 12-volt DC variable speed fan, model number 9S0612F401, part of the SanAce line. There are at least 4 SanAce fans that will fit the Symphony, but the F model has a good balance of rated speed, airflow, and a low noise rating that will get the job done quietly. These fans can be acquired from many of your usual electronic supply houses. I purchased the one we're using in today's video from Mouser, and it cost less than $15 US, possibly the best $15 I've ever spent on studio gear. So if you've ever considered this upgrade, follow along and see just how easy it is. Of note, this video was filmed during the servicing of a Symphony that had a few other issues, so we won't be able to compare the fan noise in a fully functioning unit before and after the new fan, but I'll do my best to give you a feeling for the improvement. What we have on the bench right now is an Apogee Symphony I, which is a digital audio interface, and amongst other things, we're also going to replace this fan. So this is a replacement fan for the Symphony, and these fans are known for being quite noisy, which is why we're going to be replacing the fan. So after removing 5 screws from the rear of the Apogee, taking off the rack ears, which are held on by 3 screws each, and then removing another 6 screws from the bottom of the Apogee, I'm now able to slide off the top cover and reveal the contents. There we are. And if I turn it around this way, we can see the various sections. This is the main board, which the name might imply. It says main right on the board. And of course, this is the fan that we're concerned about because it is making quite a bit of noise. The replacement fan I have is a SanAce 60, which is supposedly, it's a Sanyo Denki fan, which it has the same 12-volt power requirement. It's a 3-pin or three-wire fan, and it's meant to be a direct replacement, and legend has it it's considerably less noisy than the the fan that is currently in the Apogee. And I acquired this from Mouser, and the part number is 9S0612F401. 9S as in Sam 0612F401. So this is held in with a set of nuts and bolts, and see if I have the correct nut driver to facilitate its removal. Not exactly, so I'll use a crescent wrench to hold these. These are certainly on tight, and there's lock nuts holding them in place as well. Of course, it goes without saying that the Apogee is powered down at this particular moment in time. I just had a ventilation fan that was on in the background, so I turned that off for the taping, and also so we can get a better understanding of what this replacement fan is going to sound like once we've installed it. Maybe I'm being too optimistic in replacing the fan before I fixed whatever's going on with the second board. But I can tell you, if I can't fix what's going on with the second board, it's getting fixed, because this Apogee all in is worth a reasonably significant amount of money, and I need it to be fixed. Just taking a quick photograph of the power connections. Before I remove these, and I'll move this out of the way for the moment. And these seem to be just pressed into place. Yellow, black, and red. Yep. So a little bit like the kinds of connections we might expect in telephone wiring. However, I'm not a huge fan of this approach. No pun intended. Yeah, so this is just a simple push-down connection, very similar to what you might have in some connectors that are used for telephone wiring, landline wiring, or they're also used quite extensively in systems for Ethernet cabling, Cat5 cabling. So they can be quite robust. As I said, though, I'm just not the biggest fan. So what we'll do is trim these cables here all to the same length, because we really don't want any free exposed wire. And these go in just here, and these wires then get pushed down into the connector, and the connector cuts through the insulation and makes contact with the wire. So this is obviously an arrangement that you don't want to be relying on if you need lots of current, but of course in this case we don't. So I'm going to use a small screwdriver as a push-down tool, simply because I don't have a tool that is specifically built for this connection, and we'll see how that works for us. And again, I'm not super confident that this is going to work well. So there we go. Okay. Okay, so the way that this fan goes into the unit is such that the blades are the convex portion of the blade is facing into the apogee. And so I'll just put the wires into this sort of strain relief area there. And thread in our bolts, our 4 bolts. And the good news so far is that this fits. Put on the nuts loosely. Now the Apogee has a initial startup mode where the fan runs full speed, and so it's quite loud, which is fine for our testing purposes. But just keep in mind it'll be a lot quieter in actual use because the fan doesn't run nearly as fast, nor is it even constantly on. So there's sure this is snug. Okay, so we'll plug this in. And we'll get that cable zip tied up. Just make sure that this stays out of our way. So how does this guy sound? Plug it in. Again, we have our power lighting up. The A is not lighting up. And it hasn't changed our booting issue, but boy, that fan is a lot quieter. I can tell you that right now. Well, this is an attempt at a rather unscientific examination of the fan noise in the Apogee Symphony. And I've got a GoPro camera set up about half a meter away from the Symphony. And obviously the Symphony is turned on at the moment. And I'm attempting to measure sound pressure levels using a dB meter here. And when I stop talking, you'll see this number come down to maybe about 42 or so. Maybe not that low, maybe as low as 46 or so, 46 dB. Now what I'm going to do is turn the Apogee on and off and see if you can hear the difference. So that's the Apogee off. The Apogee on.